Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. So I turned this useless closet into a bar area, and there you see it's been emptied out. Had 5 or 6 shelves in there, and first thing I did was gain access to this outlet, as that's going to be my feeder for a light switch and outlet further up the wall here, and the switch will be for the can light that I installed that you'll see coming up. So I cut a test hole first, just to make sure I wasn't at risk of cutting any of the Romex, and then made a bigger hole once I identified where the outlet actually was. And then I'll be running wire from there up this wall, and I had to put a hole in the wall and the ceiling because there was a joist just above the top plate, so I had to notch it. But I cut the hole for the can light and fed the wire down from the can light down to this outlet. Gave myself plenty of slack, and then used a 2-gang remodel box and the jab saw to open up the drywall here. Then I pulled the Romex through and cut it. This is the remodel box I was talking about. The remodel boxes have tabs on the back, so they don't need to be attached to a stud. The tabs hook onto the back side of the drywall, so you just need to snug them up. So like I said, there'll be an outlet here and a switch to the can light that I'm installing above. So installed the can light, and there you can see the Romex inside the notch. And I do go back and put some metal plates across the Romex just to protect it. And there you can see I've tied into that outlet on the other side, and I've got my switch and plug installed, and the light is on. And you can see how it illuminates the space really well. So I was just locating the studs on that back wall, and I decided I'd be adding another outlet for the bar area here, so doing the same thing, just opening up the drywall for a remodel box. And then I wound up tying this electrical into the basement, so cut an access hole near the bottom, drilled through the bottom plate so I could have access to run the Romex down into the basement and tie into an outlet there. So installing that single gang remodel box there, and then a second one here. I had to do 2 holes because, as luck would have it, there was an outlet on the other side which was right in the way, so I just had to slide it over. This power outlet would be for the refrigerator. So then I took the 15-inch cabinet and just was doing a test fit, and it worked out perfectly. The frame of the cabinet kind of just sat in that little corner where the jamb and the casing meet, and so I was able to install that. So next I was just scoring the door stop, because there was a door on this closet, and just removing the door stop here after I scored it with the razor knife so that wouldn't be pulling a bunch of paint off as I pulled the door stop off. So then just sliding in the mini fridge for a test fit, and at this point I do have the cabinet installed. Just level it up and screw into studs on that back wall. Is very straightforward. and the refrigerator fit perfectly, so I was pumped about that. Then I took one of the shelves and used that to get my measurements for cutting the butcher block. And you can, when you're measuring from inside wall to inside wall, you've got to bend the tape measure and the to try and get the measurement on the other end. And so a good trick is just to make marks on the middle of the board and then just measure from one wall to the center and then measure from the other wall to that mark that you made, and then just add them up and you get a more accurate measurement. So now it's time to unbox the butcher block, and I have my measurements, so just transferring those measurements onto the butcher block itself, and then I cut it to length with my track saw, which is just the best tool ever. It's like a portable table saw. And then just transferring more measurements to notch out the butcher block for where it had to go around the jamb and the casing. I didn't have to trim off much. So I did most of the cut with the track saw and then just the regular circular saw, and then finish it up with just a regular old little handsaw. Okay, so I've got it cut to length and my notches cut out. So it's time for a test fit. I wanted it to be snug, but it didn't have to be super snug because of the nickel gap or shiplap boards that I would be putting up around the three walls that would cover any discrepancies where the butcher block met the wall. Just checking that it's level, but it should be, assuming I put the cabinet in properly, which I did. So good to go. So I glued that down to the cabinet. There you can see the fits pretty good, pretty tight there. And like I said, any gap will be covered by the shiplap or the nickel gap. Not happy with that. I went too far on the plunge cut with the saw, but I was able to fix that up with some putty when it came time for the finishing process. So I'm just putting in some cleats on the wall underneath the butcher block for support. Then it was time to remove the other shelf cleats in preparation for running the nickel gap material. And yeah, I ended up gluing a couple shims to the side of the cabinet and then also to the side of hot gluing them to the refrigerator to give myself a nice gap and to keep the refrigerator in place, and it would clear the frame of the cabinet perfectly, so that worked out great. So just marking the line for the stud and then just started nailing off the shiplap or nickel gap siding. And it does speed up here in a second. Won't make you watch me install every piece in real time. And this went pretty quickly. I ended up using a shim to get the to increase the gap just a little bit, so that I had a more of a full piece at the top versus a sliver. And then it was just a matter of putting a level on it and firing some nails in at either end and the one stud that was in the middle. Same thing for this side. I just matched the pattern of the back wall on the one side, put a level on it, and then just drove in nails at the corners because you know there's studs there. So there's the notches, and I put the metal plates over there to protect the Romex since it was exposed. But that'll be covered up by the shiplap. So same thing on this side, went very quickly. Just had to notch those two pieces for around the electrical box there. Obviously you can do these back walls a million different ways. You can not put anything up. You can do tile. You can do wallpaper if you wanted. All sorts of options. But we have this shiplap in another part of the house, so it made sense to use it here to just tie things in. And then I did experiments with a couple colored stains on the scrap piece of butcher block and found one which was really close. So now I'm masking off the shiplap so I can stain the butcher block. I was surprised that it wasn't ready to be stained right out of the package. I did need to sand it down quite a bit, so just using some 120 grit sandpaper here to get it smooth and consistent and ready to accept the stain. So it's vacuumed off and then tack ragged so to keep the amount of dust out of the finish as much as possible. Then I wound up putting 2 coats of the stain on the butcher block. And once that was dry, I just very lightly sanded with 220 grit. If you sand too much, you'll sand the stain right off. So just a very light sanding, and then vacuum and tack rag. And then I put 3 to 4 coats of satin oil-based poly on the top, sanding in between coats. Very happy with how that turned out. And once that was done, masked that off for protection for the painting that I'd be doing next. So it was time to sand down the jambs where the doorstop was. I used a orbital sander connected to my shop vac to keep the dust under control. And I masked off the cabinet so just the face frame was exposed. Sanded that, vacuum tack ragged, and then I just had a rattle can of primer, which I primed the face frame with. And then this is Bondo, just regular automotive Bondo, which is great for heavier fills because it dries so fast. So yeah, I had to fill in the hinges and the strike plate on the jambs because there was a door there. So I got all that prepped up and then put 2 to 3 coats of the semi-gloss white that's in the rest of the house. So painted up the jambs and then also the face frame of the cabinet. So once that was done, I was able to take the masking off the bar top. Everything looking good so far. Then it was time to install the glass shelves and hardware, and I got the hardware and the shelves on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. So these brackets were very cool. So these are little plastic flexible spacers. You put them in all the brackets down first, then you put the shelf on, and then the second set of those plastic flexible brackets on the top, and then there's set screws in the bracket themselves that you just snug up to secure the shelf in place. And we went with glass shelves so that the light would be able to transfer through and it would stay nice and bright on the bar top below. But again, you've got all sorts of options here. You can do no shelves, you could do floating shelves out of the same material, all sorts of good stuff. So now down in my shop and priming the drawer front and the door, just using a rattle can of the, well, it was either Kills or Bin shellac primer. So then once the primer was done, same procedure, sand, vacuum, tack rag, and then I used my Wagner HVLP sprayer to give it a nice factory finish for the drawer front and the door. So just installing those 2 items onto the face frame now. So you can see it's starting to take shape and looking good. Next it was on to the toe kick, so I cut a custom piece of 1/4-inch plywood or Luan and just pin nailed it into the front of the cabinet there. Then I put a little cleat on the piece that I just installed so I'd have a backer to put this piece running at 90 degrees in that spot. So once I had a test fit on that, I painted that, and then I used this glue gun, which is awesome. I'll leave a link. It's cordless. Leave a link in the description for that. So I was able to install that, and then once that was secure, I caulked up those seams and just did one more coat of the white Then it was time to install the drawer knob and the pull for the door. Pretty straightforward stuff here. And we are done. Really great use of the space. Like I said, that closet wasn't used for much, and the location's kind of in the center of the house, so it's easily accessible and close to where you would be grabbing a drink or something anyways. And turned out great, so hope you enjoyed it. And if you liked it, click that like button and subscribe. A lot more videos to come, and thanks for watching. See you on the next one.